History often remembers the victories of kings, the conquests of mighty armies, and the rise of powerful empires. But one of the most famous battles ever recorded in human history was fought by a shepherd. No armor, no sword, no military training, only a sling, 5 smooth stone, and unshakable faith in the living God. His name was David. Long before he became Israel's greatest king, long before Jerusalem became his capital, long before poets sang of his victories, he was simply the youngest son of a farmer from Bethlehem. Yet God had already chosen him for a purpose no one else could see. Today, we explore one of the Bible's most iconic historical narratives, the confrontation between David and Goliath. Beyond the famous duel lies a deeper story about leadership, faith, divine providence, and the dramatic transition from Saul's declining kingdom to David's rise. To understand why David entered the battlefield, we must first return to the final years of Saul's reign. Although Saul remained Israel's king, his relationship with God had begun to deteriorate. His impatience at Gilgal had already revealed a dangerous pattern. Instead of trusting God's timing, Saul increasingly relied upon his own judgment. The consequences became even more serious during Israel's campaign against the Amalekites. Through Samuel, God commanded Saul to carry out divine judgment against Amalek because of that nation's long history of attacking Israel, beginning during the Exodus. The command reflected a unique historical judgment within the biblical narrative and should not be understood as a general pattern for later generations. Saul defeated the Amalekite army, but he did not fully obey God's instructions. He spared King Agag. He also kept the best sheep and cattle, claiming they would later be offered as sacrifices. When Samuel confronted him, Saul defended his actions. The soldiers took the animals, he explained. "We intended to sacrifice them to the Lord." Samuel answered with words that have echoed throughout history. Does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obeying his voice? To obey is better than sacrifice, and to listen is better than the fat of rams. These words reveal one of Scripture's central themes. Religious activity can never replace obedience. God desires faithful hearts before impressive rituals. Samuel then delivered one of the most heartbreaking announcements in Israel's history. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you as king. Saul finally admitted, "I have sinned." Yet his concern quickly shifted toward preserving his public reputation before the elders of Israel. The contrast between outward appearance and inward humility became increasingly evident. As Samuel turned to leave, Saul grasped the edge of the prophet's robe. The garment tore. Samuel stopped and spoke one final prophecy. "The Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today, and has given it to one better than you." The kingdom would not change hands immediately. Years would pass before another king ruled, but God's decision had already been made. Saul would remain on the throne, while another man quietly prepared to replace him. After leaving Saul, Samuel returned to Ramah. The Bible tells us he never again visited Saul as before. He mourned deeply over Israel's first king. Despite Saul's failures, Samuel genuinely loved him. Leadership lost through disobedience brought sorrow, not celebration. Then God spoke once more. "How long will you mourn for Saul? Fill your horn with oil and go. I am sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons to be king." Samuel hesitated. "If Saul hears about this, he will kill me." The concern was understandable. Anointing another king while Saul still ruled could easily be viewed as treason. God instructed Samuel to travel under the pretense of offering a sacrifice. When the elders of Bethlehem saw the prophet arriving, they trembled. "Do you come in peace?" they asked. "I come in peace," Samuel replied. "Consecrate yourselves and come to the sacrifice." Among those invited was Jesse and his family. None of them realized they were about to witness one of the most important moments in biblical history. Jesse presented his eldest son first. Eliab was tall, strong, confident. As Samuel looked at him, he thought, "Surely the Lord's anointed stands before me." It seemed obvious. Eliab possessed every outward quality expected of a king. But God corrected Samuel. "Do not consider his appearance or his height. I have rejected him." The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. One after another, Jesse presented 7 of his sons. Each seemed capable. Each appeared worthy. Yet, each time God answered, "No." Finally, Samuel asked, "Are these all your sons?" Jesse hesitated. "There is still the youngest, but he is tending the sheep." No one had even considered inviting him. The youngest son remained in the fields, faithfully caring for his father's flock, while the rest of the family attended the gathering. Samuel replied, "Send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives." The forgotten shepherd was about to become the future king of Israel. The youngest son soon arrived from the fields. His hands still carried the marks of tending sheep. The scent of open pasture lingered on his clothing. Unlike his older brothers, David had not come expecting recognition. He had simply answered his father's call. The Bible describes him as healthy, with bright eyes and a pleasing appearance. Yet the emphasis is not placed upon his physical features. God had already declared that he was looking beyond outward appearance. The Lord was examining the heart. The moment David entered, God spoke to Samuel, "Rise and anoint him. This is the one." Without hesitation, Samuel took the horn filled with oil. In the presence of David's family, he poured the oil upon the young shepherd's head. No public announcement followed. No royal crown was placed upon him. Saul still ruled Israel. David would return to the sheep before he ever approached a throne. But from that day forward, everything had changed. The book of Samuel records, "The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David from that day on." Immediately afterward, the narrative presents a striking contrast. As God's Spirit rested upon David, Saul increasingly experienced spiritual turmoil. The biblical text describes a distressing spirit that troubled the king, highlighting the consequences of Saul's continued rejection of God's guidance. Seeking relief, Saul's servant suggested finding someone skilled in playing the harp. Music occupied an important place in the ancient Near East. Beyond entertainment, it accompanied worship, royal ceremonies, and moments of personal reflection. One servant remembered a talented young musician from Bethlehem. "I have seen a son of Jesse," he said. "He plays skillfully. He is brave. He speaks well. And the Lord is with him." Without realizing it, Saul invited his future successor into the royal court. David entered the palace not as a rival, but as a servant. Whenever Saul became deeply troubled, David played the harp. The music brought temporary relief. The king appreciated the young shepherd and even made him one of his armor-bearers. Neither man yet understood how closely their destinies would become intertwined. Meanwhile, the Philistines prepared another major campaign against Israel. The two armies assembled in the Valley of Elah, approximately 25 kilometers southwest of Jerusalem. Even today, archaeologists identify the Valley of Elah as one of the most significant geographical settings connected with the early monarchy. Excavations in the region, including sites such as Khirbet Kiafa, have uncovered Iron Age fortifications and settlements that demonstrate the strategic importance of this valley during the period traditionally associated with Saul and David. The landscape itself explains the military situation. A broad valley separated two ridges. The Philistines occupied one hillside. The Israelites camped upon the opposite slope. Between them stretched open ground where any advancing army would become fully exposed. For days, neither side attacked. Instead, the conflict became a tense standoff. Then, the Philistines introduced a terrifying challenge. Each morning and evening, a single warrior stepped into the valley. His name was Goliath. He came from Gath, one of the 5 principal Philistine cities. The Bible describes him as a giant. The precise height given in ancient manuscripts varies slightly, with some textual traditions recording approximately 6 cubits and a span, while others preserve a slightly shorter measurement. Regardless of the exact figure, every surviving tradition presents Goliath as an exceptionally large and heavily armed warrior. His bronze helmet gleamed beneath the sun. His coat of scale armor weighed thousands of shekels. Bronze protected his legs. A heavy javelin rested across his back. The shaft of his spear resembled a large weaver's beam. Its iron spearhead alone weighed several kilograms. Walking before him was a shield bearer, carrying additional protection. Whether every detail reflects literal military equipment or employs literary emphasis to underscore Goliath's overwhelming strength, the narrative leaves no doubt. He appeared invincible. Goliath shouted across the valley, "Choose one man to fight me. If he kills me, we will become your servants. But if I kill him, you will serve us." This practice is often called representative combat. Although not universal throughout the ancient world, ancient literature contains several examples in which individual champions fought on behalf of larger armies, sparing thousands from immediate battle. For 40 days, morning after morning, evening after evening, Goliath repeated his challenge. His words mocked not only Israel's army, but the God of Israel himself. Each insult echoed through the valley. Each challenge deepened Israel's fear. King Saul, once the tallest man in Israel, the very leader who appeared most qualified to answer the giant, remained silent. His soldiers stood beside him. None dared step forward. The entire nation waited, not realizing that the man God had chosen was still far away, watching sheep in Bethlehem. One morning, Jesse called David from the pasture. His 3 oldest brothers had joined Saul's army. Like many fathers, Jesse worried about their well-being. He prepared roasted grain bread and cheese for David to deliver to the camp. The journey from Bethlehem to the valley of Elah covered roughly 15 miles through the hill country of Judah. Before sunrise, David entrusted his sheep to another shepherd and began walking toward the battlefield. To David, it was simply another responsibility. He expected to deliver supplies, check on his brothers, and return home before long. He had no idea that this ordinary errand would become one of history's most unforgettable moments. When David reached the Israelite camp, excitement filled the air. Soldiers hurried into formation. Battle cries echoed across the valley. David left his supplies with the baggage keeper and ran to greet his brothers. As they spoke, a familiar figure emerged from the Philistine lines. Goliath. The giant once again shouted his daily challenge. His booming voice rolled across the valley. "Choose one man to fight me." Then he mocked the armies of Israel and openly defied the God they served. Immediately, the Israelite soldiers stepped backward. Fear spread through the ranks exactly as it had every day for weeks. David watched in disbelief. He asked the soldiers nearby, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel?" Then David spoke words that revealed how differently he viewed the situation. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Notice David's perspective. Everyone else saw a giant. David saw a man challenging God's covenant people. The battle in David's mind was never simply between Israel and Philistia. It concerned God's honor. David's oldest brother Eliab overheard the conversation. Instead of encouraging him, Eliab became angry. "Why have you come down here?" he demanded. "And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride. You've only come to watch the battle." The accusation must have stung. Years earlier, Samuel had overlooked Eliab despite his impressive appearance and had secretly anointed David instead. Whether Eliab knew the reason for Samuel's visit or not, tension between the brothers is understandable. Yet David refused to argue. "What have I done now?" he replied. "Can't I even speak?" He simply turned away and continued asking others about Goliath. His quiet persistence eventually reached King Saul. The young shepherd was summoned before the king. Standing inside Saul's tent, David addressed Israel's ruler with remarkable confidence. "Let no one's heart fail because of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul stared at the young man before him. "You are not able to fight this Philistine," the king answered. "You are only a youth. He has been a warrior from his youth." From every human perspective, Saul's assessment seemed completely reasonable. David possessed no military reputation, no combat experience against professional soldiers, no armor, no sword. Goliath represented decades of battlefield experience. David represented a shepherd from Bethlehem. But David possessed experience that Saul did not know. David explained what life as a shepherd had taught him. "When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it. I struck it. I rescued the sheep from its mouth. If it turned against me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it." Whether these encounters occurred exactly as described, or summarize multiple dangerous experiences over several years, the point is unmistakable. David had learned courage long before arriving at the battlefield. He had protected helpless sheep when no audience watched. Faithfulness in hidden places prepared him for public responsibility. Then David declared the foundation of his confidence. "The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." David did not trust his own strength. He trusted God's proven faithfulness. Saul finally answered, "Go, and may the Lord be with you." Before David departed, Saul attempted to help him. The king placed his own bronze helmet upon David's head. He fastened a coat of armor around him. He gave David his sword. For a moment, the shepherd looked like a soldier. But after taking only a few steps, David stopped. "I cannot go in these," he said. "I am not used to them." He removed every piece. This decision has often been misunderstood. David was not rejecting preparation, nor was he glorifying weakness. Rather, he recognized that someone else's equipment could never replace the gifts and experiences God had already given him. Instead, David picked up his shepherd's staff. He selected 5 smooth stones from the nearby brook. He placed them inside his shepherd's pouch. Then, carrying only his sling, he walked into the valley. Some have wondered why David chose 5 stones a day, if he expected God to grant victory. The text itself offers no explicit explanation. Many scholars simply observe that an experienced slinger would naturally prepare more than a single projectile before entering combat. Whatever the reason, David's confidence rested not in the number of stones, but in the God who guided his hand. As the young shepherd advanced across the valley, the giant began walking toward him. 2 very different kinds of power were about to collide. Goliath slowly descended into the valley. Every step displayed confidence born from years of warfare. His armor shimmered beneath the morning sun. His shield-bearer walked before him. From a distance, David appeared almost insignificant. A shepherd carrying a staff, a sling, a leather pouch, no sword, no armor, no spear. When Goliath finally saw his opponent clearly, he burst into laughter. The giant had expected Israel's greatest warrior. Instead, he found a young shepherd. "Am I a dog," Goliath shouted, "that you come against me with sticks?" Then he cursed David by the names of his own gods. His insults echoed across the valley. "Come here," he mocked. "I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the wild animals." The Philistine expected fear. Instead, he heard one of the Bible's greatest declarations of faith. David answered with calm confidence, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel whom you have defied." Notice what David did not say. He did not boast about his own courage. He did not claim superior skill with the sling. He did not speak about defeating Goliath through personal ability. Everything centered upon God. David continued, "This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and all the earth will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that the Lord saves not with sword and spear, for the battle belongs to the Lord." These words summarize the entire theology of the narrative. The story is not primarily about a courageous young man overcoming impossible odds. It is about God's sovereignty. Victory belongs to him. Human strength alone never determines history. Suddenly Goliath advanced. David did not retreat. He ran toward the giant. The speed of his movement surprised everyone watching. Reaching into his shepherd's pouch, David selected 1 smooth stone. He placed it into the sling. With practiced precision developed through years of protecting sheep, he began swinging the sling above his head. Archaeological discoveries and experimental reconstructions demonstrate that ancient slings were formidable weapons. A skilled slinger could launch a stone at remarkable speed and accuracy, making the sling a respected military weapon throughout the ancient Near East. Not merely a shepherd's tool. David released the stone. It flew across the valley. The projectile struck Goliath directly in the forehead. The giant staggered. Then, before either army fully understood what had happened, he collapsed face down upon the ground. The battlefield fell silent. The impossible had happened. David possessed no sword. He immediately ran toward the fallen warrior. Standing over Goliath, he took the giant's own sword from its sheath. With it, David ended the battle by killing Goliath and removing his head. Seeing their champion dead, the Philistine army broke ranks in panic. The psychological advantage that had dominated the previous 40 days disappeared instantly. Israel's soldiers, inspired by David's courage, surged forward. The Philistines fled toward the gates of Gath and Ekron. The Israelites pursued them across the valley, winning one of the most decisive victories of Saul's reign. Afterward, the soldiers returned to collect the abandoned equipment from the Philistine camp. David kept Goliath's weapons as tangible evidence of God's deliverance. The victory belonged to Israel, but David never claimed it as his own achievement. King Saul watched everything unfold with growing amazement. He asked Abner, the commander of his army, "Whose son is this young man?" The question has prompted much discussion among biblical scholars. Earlier chapters already described David serving in Saul's court as a musician. Some suggest Saul's question reflects the fact that David's role at court had been relatively limited, making his family background less familiar. Others propose that Saul's worsening condition, or the passage of time, contributed to the uncertainty. Whatever the explanation, the narrative's focus remains clear. The shepherd who had quietly served in the palace had now become Israel's national hero. When David returned carrying the giant's weapons, Saul spoke with him personally. From that day forward, David remained within the royal court. His life, as an anonymous shepherd, had come to an end. Among those watching the battle was Saul's son, Jonathan. Unlike many princes throughout history, Jonathan did not envy David's success. Instead, he recognized genuine faith when he saw it. The scriptures tell us that the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David. The two men formed one of the deepest friendships recorded in the Bible. Jonathan gave David his robe, armor, sword, bow, and belt. These gifts symbolized honor, loyalty, and covenant friendship. Some scholars also observe that the exchange subtly foreshadows Jonathan's willingness to recognize God's future purpose for David, rather than clinging selfishly to his own claim as heir to the throne. Yet while one member of Saul's family embraced David, another heart began moving in a very different direction. The songs of victory would soon echo throughout Israel. Women would celebrate the young shepherd who defeated the giant. Those songs would awaken something dangerous inside King Saul: jealousy, fear, and suspicion. The battle with Goliath had ended, but a far more personal conflict, one that would shape the future of Israel's monarchy, was only just beginning.